April 2014 FM Walleyes meeting features fishing pro and longtime club member Corey Heiser. Corey's presentation is entitled Electronics Catch Walleye. Now here's our club president, Scotty Brewer.
There isn't a whole lot I can tell you guys about Corey that you don't already know. Corey's been a club member for, I don't know how many years, a lot of years. He's been a local walleye pro for a lot of years. Very, very knowledgeable. Arguably one of the most knowledgeable guys in our area, especially on the topic he's going to talk about. But one thing you might not know is Corey is our club Classic Cup version of Mike Iaconelli. How many of you guys know who Mike Iaconelli is? If you've ever fished against Corey, you'll know what I'm talking about. So those of you that don't know, don't worry about it. It's an inside joke. Anyway, let's bring up Corey. Let's get a big round of applause. If by chance you can't hear Corey in the back of the room, raise your hand, but I don't think that'll be a problem.
Is it something like this?
Yeah!
Is that how it goes?
Something like that.
Kyle asked if you guys could squeeze in. We got a lot of people standing. There's a lot of people here. So if you guys could kind of squeeze in a chair to give people in the back an opportunity to sit down. We're running short of chairs, so.
Hold up your hand if you have a chair next to you.
Yeah, you gotta, if you can, quickly. All right. Apparently they want to stand closer to the beverages, apparently, so we're good. Right? Couple things. I actually talked to some of my good friends about giving an electronics seminar, and I said I got an hour, and they go, oh my heavens, are you in trouble? There is a lot to talk about in an hour. So I'm going to ask everyone to do me one big favor. Don't raise your hand and ask questions during the seminar. I'll be happy to be here till midnight, 1 o'clock if you need to answer questions. I know a few guys have caught me. I've handed out business cards. If you get my business card, do me one quick favor. Do not call me. And my number's on there, and do not give my number out. Email me or text me and let me call you back. I do a lot of in-store stuff, and it's like rule number 1 to the employees. Do not give my phone number out. One of our guys put their phone number on Walleye Central and had to change his number. Clearly we've got a packed house. You guys want to know about electronics. So it's cool. We're going to get through it. I'm going to try and go as fast as I can with covering everything, but if I miss something or we go too fast, seriously, hang out afterwards. I'd be happy to answer it all. So I think with that, we are going to get rolling. How many of you guys got Lowrance Electronics before we got started? So we got a pretty full house. How many got other electronics? Okay. Most of the stuff we talk about for sonar, the GPS, and the chart and the imaging is all somewhat similar technologies, whether you're running Humminbird, Garmin, or Lowrance. I've been with Lowrance for 15 years probably. I actually do in-store for Cabela's, Shields, and then different marine dealers. So I do know quite a bit about most of the products, so we're going to cover a little bit of everything. So anyway, sonar and the chart, those types of things, really it comes down to how they display in different patented products. But otherwise, sonar is sonar, GPS is GPS. So this will be good for all of you. Why would I have a picture of Gary Roach to start this deal off? I'll tell you why. It's exactly why you guys are all here. You want to know more about electronics. Gary Roach, I'm fortunate enough to have on speed dial. He's a great cat. What's awesome about Gary is over 70 years old. You talk to Gary, he'll tell you flat out, spend your money on electronics before you spend it on a boat. Because that boat, we all drive, some of us drive really fancy boats, but good fishermen will tell you flat out, when you look at a guy's boat, it doesn't matter how many sparkles, how big the engine is, we go look and see how big their graphs are. See how many graphs they got. Because that boat's nice, we can get going fast, but unless you have good electronics, you don't know what's underneath you. And I said it on the radio today, Tom Backer, Randash, Gary Roach, they're all really good, but there ain't none of them that have ever caught a walleye in a swimming pool. And there's no wallies that swim there. If there's no wallies underneath you, you can't catch it. So you really got to take advantage of electronics. That's actually Gary with an iPad. The first year the Navionics app came out for mobile. And it was the coolest deal. We were at Chamberlain, South Dakota for Shields Fishing University. And he's like a kid in a candy store running through all these spots on Lake Sharp that he had fished for the last 35 years. And he could do it all on an iPad in the bar. So that's just a cool deal. So Gary's constantly learning. That's obviously why we're all here, is to learn more about our electronics. This is what we're going to cover: sonar, the structure scan, the imaging, GPS. We're going to try and get through it all. I'm definitely getting through the troubleshooting and the settings. I asked a few of you about the new motor guide trolling motor, and I got a resounding yes. You need to talk about it. So if we get running a little bit long, even if we have to, we'll break, and I'll go through those slides with a small group or something. Like I said, there's a lot to cover. I do have to say thanks to Chris Meyer, Doc Sonar, and Lowrance Electronics. Chris Meyer is a product validation guy for Lowrance Electronics. So every time you get those up, you're supposed to update your graph. Chris Meyer has had them in his boat before you ever seen them. So if there's a problem with them, how they work, how they display, Chris has actually done it. He's a friend of mine. He actually provided me with many of these slides we're going to see. Doc Sonar, Doc Sampson, he's been doing videos on Lowrance for years and years. He's a guru when it comes to this stuff. Again, he's a good friend of mine, and he gave me some of these slides, so I need to really thanks to both of those. Sonar. What's sonar? Really, it's just a wave that goes down through the water. It's electrically charged. It flutters to create that pulse. How do you know if your transducer's working? The first thing, you're going to hear that click. So make sure when your unit's powered on, if it's outside, on the trailer, you need to hear that click. The sonar waves go through water easier than anything else. So I had a question earlier, why do we not use the fish icons? We're going to talk a little bit about that more. But your sonar is going to pick up anything thicker than or more dense in the water. So fish, weeds, trees, rocks, and it's going to display. Now, this picture we're looking at with all these arches, if that would be those fish icons, we're going to talk a little bit about that. That screen would be solid fish. You'd be like, oh, we're on fish. But if you go over a tree, like I was explaining to him, that might display as all fish too. So first thing I'm going to tell you, if you have any experience with electronics, turn those fish ID off. And we're going to talk more about that. It takes the signal and it filters it at a higher level. So you're missing out on a lot of the information by using those. A couple things about frequencies. When you buy your transducer, it's 83,200, 5,200. There's all these numbers. What is that? That's the frequency. The lower the frequency, it's actually a slower pulse. It penetrates deeper. So for me, I always use an 83,200 transducer. We run it in 200 for everything less than 100 feet. When you get into that 100 feet mark, that's when maybe you want to use that 83. You lose some of your sensitivity and your clarity with the 83, but it does pulsate deeper than the 200. So the higher the frequency, the more detailed it's going to be. That's why we're going to talk about the imaging sonars. We have the 455 and the 800. So we're working up to a lot higher detail. Transducer. When I get a phone call or an email, the number one thing I talk about is your transducer. It's amazing. You spend $3,000 on a Touch 12 and you had it for 6 months and it don't read the bottom. Because a $75 transducer got whacked on a rock or a tree and it doesn't work. There's crystals inside of that transducer. If you whack it on a rock, there's a 50% chance that thing is now broke inside of it. It happens, but those are your eyes beneath the water. So that $3,000 unit cannot function properly without a $75 piece. So if you're having issues with seeing the bottom, check your transducer first. That is the number one issue. Make sure the bottom of your transducer is clean. Make sure your connection's good. If it doesn't read at speed, you got problems with turbulent water. The sonar will not read through air as clear as it does water. Now, most of you guys probably run aluminum boats. I used to have a Lund for many years. Lunds are the worst for turbulent water to a transducer. Why is that? Look underneath it once and take a look at all the rivets running in every which direction in the strakes. Every one of those causes turbulence back to your transducer. If you have disturbed water, you will not be able to see the bottom at speed. That's the biggest deal. Needs to be level. As you can see here, we got the water, that halfway mark, that is the halfway mark of that transducer. It needs to be below. When you mount it, if you get a new boat or if you put a new transducer on, get down on your hands and knees and look. Those strakes up in the front, I always pick on Lund because they have the IPS2 now and they have all them strakes coming back. Those all create turbulence back to the transducer. And then they do you one more favor and they put rivets all along the back, which just creates another issue with speed. So that is the biggest deal of why you are not getting a good reading at speed. If your transducer looks great, your graph looks great, when you're trolling, when you're fishing, and you get up on speed and you start swearing at the thing, your transducer's mounted improperly. I can assure you that 100%. Now, how a fish arch is made. It's amazing how over the years, this slide looks like it's probably 20 years old. It's probably dock sonars. But a lot of guys are like, why don't I get a perfect arch? Well, a couple things have to happen to get a perfect arch. That fish has to be completely stationary and your boat has to go over it at an equal speed, or your boat has to be completely stationary and that boat has to go over it at an equal speed. So, and as you can see, what it is that sonar is a big cone. I mean, it's not that big, and I got a chart in a minute that's going to show you that, but it's a cone. So as that fish, as your boat goes over that fish, it reads it at 20 feet. Let's say you're in 30 feet of water. The fish is 10 feet off the bottom. When I first see that fish, I'm actually seeing it 21 feet away from the transducer. Okay? So we get the tail. As I go over it, it actually is getting closer to my boat. So now my graph thinks it's right underneath me. And as I go over it, I get the tail of the arch. That's how an arch is made. Why do we get sometimes you see a flat line? Miraculously, you have that fish swimming underneath your boat at the same speed. You get a half arch. Maybe the fish was partially outside your cone angle. You pick up just a half arch. But that's how arches are made. People are like, well, I'm not really marking fish because I don't have a full arch. It is difficult to mark perfect arches all the time. I've got a sweet slide coming up here that's going to show you when you're stationary and the fish are stationary underneath you, they will not be arches. They're going to be flat lines as they swim in and out of your cone. It's going to be a real elongated deal. So anyways, that's how an arch is displayed. And that's all sonar. It doesn't matter what graph you have. People wonder how do the sonars work. This is just a quick deal to show you the difference between 83 and 200. Like I explained, 83 is better for deeper water. The slower frequency penetrates deeper. 200 is better clarity. Here's a chart I wanted to show you. 200, which most of us use. Okay, you're in 10 feet of water, you only have a 3-foot diameter circle. Okay, why do you hear a lot of pros talk about I'm in 10 feet of water, I don't really rely on my electronics as much. I'm driving on a 10-foot flat, I got 3 feet on the bottom of the lake. You know how centered that walleye's got to be underneath me to mark? It's got to be direct hit center. So this is a pretty good example of how that works. Just remember 200, which 90% of us are using, divide your depth by 3. That's how big your circle is. I know Troy will attest, we fished a tournament a couple weeks ago. If we weren't marking fish, we were catching my tongue. Well, we only got a 2-foot circle below us. I mean, you're not going to see very many fish. And that's why a lot of us, as we get deeper, you start to get into 30 feet, you got a 10-foot diameter. Now all of a sudden you're wider than your boat. Now you'll see something. 20 feet, you're at 6.5, 6 3/4 feet. So now you're starting to cover some more of the bottom. That's the biggest reason that guys talk about not seeing fish shallow. It has nothing to do, in my opinion, with spooking fish. Broadband sonar. This is a Lowrance plug. I cannot dispute it. Broadband sonar is patented by Lowrance. I am very proud to be with Lowrance because of broadband sonar. We feel like it displays better, and why is that? Well, we patented some process to send a high frequency signal down with a lot more power and return it and be able to display those nice arches like that. We get a much better detail at speed. I got a couple slides from now, we're going to see how you can actually see your jig in deep water. And now we're incorporating this in all of our product. So if you buy an Elite product now for $300, an Elite 4 HDI, it's got broadband sonar. When broadband sonar first came out, I believe it was about 2006, 7-ish probably, you had to have a box. If you remember that. You plug your transducer into the box went to your graph. That was your broadband sonar. We've now got that built in. It's what Lowrance feels like separates us from everyone else to why we see fish. If you look in here, you, me, and the rest of everyone, when you first see that, it looks like you're in weeds and you got a bunch of clutter, right? If you look, there's actually bait up there, and if you look closer, there's a fish down in the bottom of the weeds. Now I can tell you these are all screenshots from either myself, Chris Meyer, or Doc Sonar. So you can pay attention to those types of things. Again, this yellow is the hardest signal in this color palette. I'm not a fan of this color palette. I'm going to show you that in a second. But there you can see what a fish would look like down in the bottom of the weeds as you go through them. That's in 10 feet of water. Networking sonar. How many tiller guys I got? Tiller boat guys? So not even quite half. Okay, good. Most of us have electronics on our bow mount and electronics in our back. Okay? We all happen to run that way. If you sit in the bow of your boat, I will tell you, you want to see the transducer off your sonar in the bow of your boat, off the bottom of your trolling motor. By networking sonar and an Ethernet cable now, I can share those images between multiple units. Okay? At one point, they told us 10 years ago that's impossible. You can't do that. Well, now with Ethernet, we're able to do it. Why would we do that? Okay? I've got a guy in the back of my boat, and I'm fishing a steep break, say on Sakakawea, drifting down the dune. I'm trying to stay in 12 feet in the nose of the boat. We get a side drift. And the guy keeps complaining back there, I can't catch nothing, I can't catch nothing. And I tell him, well, we're fishing at 12, but all he sees on that sonar is 22 feet. 22 feet all the time. Because he doesn't see what I'm seeing. I can simply network my sonar, connect it to the back graph, and he can see what I'm seeing. I tell this for tiller guys all the time. Tiller guys never put another trolling motor in the boat or in the water. The front guy of the boat stares into space all day long. Feet up, looking at the clouds, dragging around like this. If the guy would just simply network his sonar to his front bow unit, his partner could see the exact same image that he's looking at. And I'm telling you from experience, if your partner can see the graph and understand what you're looking at when you're driving the boat, he's going to catch more fish because he's paying attention. In order to do that, you do have to be connected through Ethernet. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between NEMA and Ethernet in a second, but that has to be connected through Ethernet. Another reason is if you put your trolling motor down and you have your sonar going in the back, sometimes 25, 30, 35 feet, you'll start to pick up interference between the two graphs. One way to fix that is, if I'm fishing in the front, I'll network sonar the back one, so I'm turning that transducer off, so I don't have interference between my own two graphs, and then they can see what I'm seeing. Very simple to do, menu, and then click on the network sonar button. It's menu, click on the network sonar. I think I've got, we covered this. Track back. And now I'm not sure, Troy, does Humminbird, can you track back, scroll back? Another cool feature I use all the time. If anyone's ever fished with me, I use it all the time. These happen to be screenshots from someone else. This is a screenshot of mine from Big Cormorant, actually. What is track back? So as you're watching your sonar go and you see the most perfect arcs in the world and you're like, oh, I didn't hit waypoint, or I had my head down in the cooler and I missed them, and I don't know exactly where those fish were, I simply scroll back. The cursor comes up, I can drop a waypoint right on them. As you scroll back through the sonar, it'll actually follow your trail, and then you can drop a waypoint. Anybody that's ever fished with me, I do this all day, every day. And I happen to use the red flags. I have red flags all over my GPS where I'm going back to fish. Because I'll drive around, mark something like this. To me, this is perfect. In fact, I wish Randash was here. We were pre-fishing before the Big Cormorant tournament last year. I caught a walleye in 41 feet of water in the mud in Big Cormorant 2 days before that tournament. And those were the ones. But simply go back, hit enter on them, and get a waypoint. Really nice. This is what I was talking about the different arches on the same spot. This is when I went through a spot the first time on Big Cormorant. If you see, the arches are all tall. Why are they? I went over them and I got off of them fast. It's probably driving 5 miles an hour or 6 miles an hour. So they displayed vertically, very quick. They seen it, got over it, done. Big arch. Okay? I spun back around, I started driving slow up and down the same break, basically fishing. Now look at how long they are. Nice, big, long arches. This is color palette 13 on the Lowrance unit. Brown bottom. I will tell you that is the first thing to do on your sonar units for Lowrance. Color palette 13. Why is that? Brown bottom, yellow displays so nicely. If the fish is laying right on the floor, I got a different color. The yellow and the reds seem to bleed in. I'm not as big a fan. Those of you that fished the Cormorant tournament 2 years ago, this was the greatest fishing on big cormorant I've ever seen. I told everyone I'm winning the tournament. Lo and behold, I'm in the third flight. I get in there and 10 boats were all sitting in this spot. And they were all netting them when I got there. So send your entries in faster, you'd be in the first flight. I wouldn't have been getting hosed on that day. So, Barry, get them entries out so they can get signed up. All right. So, but this is what I'm looking for. You guys see this stuff? Those are arches. I want to fish that. Big time. Big time fishing. Here's the other footage I wanted to show you guys. This was super cool. I marked some fish in 32 feet of water on big cormorant. I went back, I dropped an icon on them, I went back on them, I hit spot lock on my trolling motor, dug out my jig and wrap, and started ripping. If you look here, this is my jig and wrap. This is in 32 feet of water last October on big cormorant. These are walleyes. Well, I don't know if they're walleyes, because as you can see from the picture, as I ripped my jig and wrap, I got them way up off the bottom, just like I'm ice fishing. I never did catch one. In fact, Morris still makes fun of me. How could you have that many fish underneath and you didn't catch one? Can't believe he actually fishes with me after it was that bad. But this is real life footage. That's from my boat on big cormorant. So you can do it. If you got your stuff, you sit on them. And this is what I'm telling you. This fish sat underneath my boat and swam. Big, elongated. No arch. That's a fish. Okay? And you can see me ripping my jig here. So again, real life footage. Sonar tips and tricks. Run on sensitivity. 6 years ago I'd have told you, do not run your graphs on auto sensitivity. Save your money and buy something else because you're not getting the most out of it. Now, the new Elites, the new HDS, even the new Birds, I'm sure you guys, sensitivity is great. Automatic. It's got computer processing in them. In fact, when we go to Lowrance training and meetings, we don't call these graphs, we don't call them units, they're MFDs, multifunctional displays. That's what a Lowrance HDS or an HDS Touch in lingo is an MFD, multifunctional display. It's a computer. We can hook multiples of them together, so that's the deal. Run it on auto sensitivity. Someone in here did not understand, which is confusing. You can actually adjust your auto sensitivity. So when it's on auto on HDS, if I slide my cursor, I can go +1, +2, -1, -2, up and down the chart, but it gives me a good base point. I run a lot of clutter on my screens. In fact, I'm just going to flip back. If you look on here, I got a lot of stuff, right? I don't like to have a clean screen. I'm going to miss out. If you look at all those, I always got stuff. Where's the walleye live most of the time? At the bottom. I really don't care what's above here. Doesn't matter to me in 20 feet of water, to be honest with you. I want to know what's down here. So, again, auto sensitivity, big cormorant, I'll run it +1, +2. Devil's Lake, I'll run it -1, -2. Depends how much debris is in the water, that type of thing. Color palette 13. Sonar not working. I'm going to show you how you get your sonar set up with the right transducer. But you can't run a 50 kilohertz on 83-200. We'll show you that. Is the sonar on stop sonar? Someone clicked the button that said stop sonar. The transducer stops clicking. Doesn't work. So that's another trick. If you're getting interference and you don't have your sonars networked, click on stop sonar on one of the two graphs. The chart stops moving, but the transducer also quits clicking. You'll get rid of your interference right away. If your sonar sharing, like we talked about, and your trolling motor gets pulled out of the water and your graph starts flashing, it's because it says the other unit. And you can't read when that transducer's up in the sky. I have had that happen to me numerous times. We have fishing mode settings now. When you buy a new graph, it goes through the settings. Shallow water. Unless you're going out to the Great Lakes, fishing trout and salmon deep, you want to be on the shallow water, 0 to 100 feet. Again, they're computers. By simply selecting that, you're going to tell it at its optimal range where it needs to focus its attention. So a really easy deal. In order to find that, menu, sonar, fishing mode, enter. I know it sounds confusing, especially when you don't have a graph in front of you. I understand. And for the record, I've never read a book on any sonar. I'm a hands-on learner, so just so all of you know, that book is this thick and how do you ever get through it? I don't know how you get through it. I'd have to ask someone else because I've never read the books. So I remember the first in-store I did, some customer walked up and said, one page, I said, are you talking about the book? He said, yeah. I said, I've never even looked at the book. He says, well, have you ever seen this unit? I said, well, give me about 3 minutes. We just push buttons. Don't be afraid to push buttons on your graphs. Don't be afraid to go to Shields and push buttons on their graphs. They may not like it, but they're going to be fine. Figure out how that stuff works. Terrell will attest, I've got a plug-in for my house. I plug my graph into the wall, Lowrance sells an accessory. I play with my electronics in the basement of my house all winter long. Turn them on in your boat in the garage. Push buttons. That's the only way you're going to find out where these menus are. Select your transducer. This is a big deal because they're not pre-selected when you buy it. If you're on a general use, you just remove the opportunity to have an error. So I'll go ahead and select your transducer. Again, it's sonar installation, and then select which transducer. Every transducer is labeled with a white label. Tell you which transducer you've got. Keel offset. This is unbelievable with tournament fishermen. We go onto a big flat lake, varies a foot by a quarter mile. Buddy's catching fish in 20 feet, I can't catch them. What in the world is going on? I've got my keel offset set to 1.3 feet, he don't. I'm fishing 1.3 feet difference than he is, which means I'm about a quarter to a half mile away. Well, that ain't very good. So, keel offset. Again, it's an installation. What that is, it just varies from the bottom of your boat. You know, if you've got our boats, we have a transducer glass into the bottom. What are we, 16 inches below water line when we're running, when we're sitting still. A line might be a little shallow. So all you got to do is when it's sitting flat in the water, take a tape measure, guess, a foot, 1.2. Or make sure you don't set it. And then you know if that's in the bottom of your boat, you got an extra 1.4 feet of water. But it's amazing to me how many times guys are talking the same depth, but they're actually this far different. So that's a big deal if you're not catching them. Flew through sonar pretty quick. Structure scan imaging, hot deal. Everybody's got structure scan. Nobody understands it at first. Why do I need it? What more is it going to show me? Yep, I've heard it all. Lowrance structure scan. Why do we sell it? We've got 3 crystals in there. One is dedicated that direction, one is dedicated the other direction. We've got one dedicated for down. The down crystal is where Lowrance we feel like is separated. One way to think about your imaging transducer is use these as flashlights. Okay? So I've got a flashlight shining down, 2 flashlights shining off to the side. So where those beams of light overlap, that's where your best signals are going to be. You're going to be able to cover that area as well. Okay? So like if you come down in between here, you're reading it with both your down crystal and your side crystal. Again, these are at 455 and 800, so high details. And I got a slide next, I'll show you how that goes into the water. But again, we've got the steel that's around the crystal to direct that image, to direct where that pulse goes, versus a regular crystal and a transducer that's just a big circle. This is a controlled environment. 455 is 3 degrees. Again, lower the frequency, further will penetrate the water. If you notice, we'll screenshot a bunch of stuff. You'll see 800 kilohertz is run most of the time. If you're really trying to get a down image in deep water, then you go to 455, otherwise 800 is pretty common. This circle is your traditional transducer. That's how your sonar reads. It's that circle that we talked about. Your structure scan or your imaging is actually a slice. The easiest way I can explain it to you, and this is what I use in store all the time. I happen to have broke my thumb, which was pretty embarrassing for some of you at the Pelican tournament. By the way, if you see a boat wheel spinning, don't set your hand up there. Them suckers are hungry. 64 pieces between these two knuckles. Anyways, I go to the doctor, right? He wants a quick look at it. He takes an x-ray. That's my sonar. Takes a big, broad, okay, yeah, you're broke. You're not going fishing. Well, he didn't know me very well, did he, Barry?
Yeah, he went fishing.
Yeah, I went fishing. So anyways, he says he's broke, okay? Well, when I had to go to my hand specialist, he needed to know, is this thing going to fall apart when I open it up? How many tendons did he rip apart? They need to give you an MRI. They need to give you imaging. That's what the structure scan and the imaging does. It's a higher detail. You're able to see, instead of just a big hard bottom, I'm going to see individual rocks. Instead of seeing a hard bottom and sand, we're going to be able to pick up on that. And we've got some great, great slides to show the difference in all of that. But that's the biggest difference. So we're narrower this way. So why can I see a fish in sonar but I can't see it in structure scan? It doesn't make any sense to me. Because the fish is actually in front of the boat as I move that way, and it's scattering before I get to my structure scan. I can tell you wholeheartedly, if you mark a fish with your sonar and you mark a fish with your down scan, you better catch it. Because that sucker is pinned right underneath your boat. Again, that was that jig and rat deal. That's why I'm surprised I'm not fired, because I didn't catch any. So, here's the coverage that we talked about. One thing I'll show you is guys are in 8 feet of water and they want to see 100 feet out to the side. Okay, that structure scan is at a 90-degree angle. So I'm about like this. Okay, I'm 6 foot tall. I can shoot out about 12 feet. Okay, if I'm 4 feet tall, I'm at about 6. Remember that when you guys are looking at your side scan. You can only go out as far as that angle will allow you. I know we're going to get into geometry and metrics and things like that, but that can only shoot as wide as that angle is. So when you're got a bunch of black, and we'll see if I got a slide with that. Here's the structure scanning box for Lowrance. That's a standard transducer. We do have some through-hull stuff. Through-hull does not mean it shoots through the hull of your boat. It means that they drill a hole on the bottom of your boat and stick a plug up through the bottom. You get that question all the time. Can't shoot it. We can't shoot imaging through the bottom. Anyways, structure scan. I don't want to have a big sales seminar, so plug that in for an HDS unit. You can connect 3 units. You can have an expansion port that'll expand that to another 4. A couple boats ago, before we had touch, that is built into a touch unit, so you do not have to have that if you have a touch unit. But otherwise, you can have an expansion port, and we can expand that network with that. Mounting location, it is a big transducer. It's about that long. A lot of guys don't like hanging off the back. It's expensive. It's $300. If you break it, you got to buy a new one. That's the way it works. So for like myself and a Ranger, you got it flush mounted up underneath the step. I do not use my structure scan more than at 6 miles an hour. If I'm going 7.5 miles an hour, that structure scan is worthless because I have it mounted up out of the water. You get the turbulence. So personally, I would tell you on the back of an aluminum boat, mount it up higher. If you go to Devil's Lake, you get up in the stumps, the bottom of your boat's going to hit that stump before that transducer does, because that could be a quick $300. It is on a nice aluminum bracket finally versus the skimmers on the plastic. This shouldn't break, it should just bend forward. So it's a little safer, but there's no sense risking it. I forgot a slide as I was putting this together today. I thought about it. If you mount this up underneath here, okay, you got to flip. There's a selection to flip left and right. Okay, if I have it like this, the cord comes down. Okay, that's the standard way to mounting that structure scan transducer. It's the way it should read. If you mount it flush mount, the cord comes out the other end. Okay, now you need to change it, flip your left and right. Otherwise, you're going to figure out why is I'm driving this way and that's shallow and that's deep, and my graph tells me that's opposite. Okay, there's a setting in there on your structure scan menu, and then it's right there. Flip left and right, hit enter on it, you're done. It's a one-time setting. That's all it is. Classic example of what I was talking to you guys about. Two-dimensional X-ray. I got a big blob of something. Don't know what it is. Here I got a much cleaner picture. To me that looks like an irrigation pipe coming in. Now, I guarantee if I call Chris, I bet that is. Almost looks like a kind of a pipe with a hole at the end of it. And that's how it works. And you'll see I've got a couple slides coming up. Here's just the coverage of it again. Breaks it down into how far out you can see. Common rule of thumb on your side scan is 3 to 4 times your depth. So kind of keep that in mind. You know, sometimes you can get away with 4 feet 4 times. So if you're in 30 feet, you know, 150, 120 would be a little bit extended. As you get shallower, you need to shrink that up a little bit closer to 3. Otherwise, you just get a bad picture. Maybe perfect. What happens is if this range is out too far, you guys, and you'll notice this is just black anyways. You pay $2,000 or $3,000 to see that. Don't waste the screen on black. You know, take advantage of it. Take the most out of it. What are we looking at? For those of you that don't know, this is the boat in structure scan. Okay, this is the right. Obviously, that's the left. This from here to here is right underneath the boat. Okay, from here out is how we expand it out. So if you want to get technical, we are not looking 80 feet out to the side. It's actually less because it's at an angle. Okay, so there's a little bit for you. So what are we looking at? We got a soft bottom. This is on the color palette that I think it's 4 maybe. That's a soft bottom. Not much discrete, not a real hard signal coming back. Hard bottom. You got the nice white there. And now we've got the transition. You Minnesota guys, you've whooped on me for a long time. Fish transition's better than anyone in the country. This is good, right? You have to be a genius to say them fish are going to be close to that transition, right? Never all the way up on top of the rocks. That's where they're at. Oh,
And there they are.
and there they are. Right on the transitions. Again now, I don't have a big round signal. I don't get an arch on structure scan. I don't get an arch on down scan. That is sending a slice like this. It's going to be a blip, fast. Just a quick blip. That's all it is. Okay? If you get a big mark and you want to know what that is, a lot of times you can see the shadow in behind if we zoom in on the unit. Okay? Shadow means it's up off the bottom or it's elevated. You're getting that shadow from the imaging back. So again, this is what fish. This to me looks like school of crappies, or it's maybe a big school of bait, bigger bait, and then we got the scattered fish. And again, right on the transitions. Structure scan, side scan for finding rocks and weed edges cannot be beat. Because I can cover all of those rock spines that cormorant and look at them all and find the edges 7 times faster than anyone without it. And it ain't because I'm smart. It's because it shows me rock, 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 sand. Easy. Okay? Measure distance. This was the coolest thing. At first I'm like, why would anyone need to measure distance? Kind of seems silly. Does this thing really work? Well, it does. You mark some of these marks that we showed you on the page before. You hit menu, click on the measure distance. I bring the cursor. It'll tell me. 8.7 feet is what that one measured. It's been amazing. We've caught pike before and we've measured them out 2.5 feet. It's unbelievable how that actually works. If you're looking, I think I cut the slide out because I knew we were going to be short on time. But Chris Meyer found a boat in the middle of, I don't know, Duluth or something, and took a photo from the 50s. And then showed the structure scan image and measured it out. It was the boat. And it's amazing because he was able to measure out that distance. So, pretty cool deal. Again, this is a classic. This could have been one of mine off of Cormorant because that's a classic deal on how it looks. See all that nice little small rock? Perfect. You get some bigger chunk rock off to the side. Nice ledge coming off here. We don't have that rock here. You can see where it kind of falls off the earth. Here we got the rock pile falling. That's how you read that again. Fish eating in a bait ball. It's traditional sonar. I can tell those are fish, right? Pretty easy, right? But can you tell these fish? No. The guy with structure scan beats you because he knows those are fish inside that bait ball. Okay? Here it is zoomed in. Here we got the bait with the fake dots and the fish are the bright white. Okay? Now you see me, now you don't. Traditional sonar. Can't do it. Can't see it. Down scan. Right there. I think it. Fish tight to the bottom. Same fish as structure scan. I don't have a slide up. Another thing where structure scan or down scan really stands itself out from sonar is on tight breaks. Why is that? My sonar, my big cone, as I move on it, if that fish is up against the side, I pick up the shallower water, there's dead areas in traditional sonar because it takes a big swath. If a fish is on the bottom right behind a tree, traditional sonar cannot pick it up. I don't care if it's Lowrance, I don't care. If you have two big rocks and that fish is laying in between the two big rocks, sonar is going to pick up the tops of those two rocks and there's dead area in between them. Down scan picks that stuff up, structure scan. So one thing I do a lot, weeds, structure, or down scan, rocks, big open water, side scan, structure scan. That's a classic example of losing fish tight to the bottom. This is actually, Troy was with me the day I got this. This is out of my boat. We were pulling into a spot in Devil's Lake. I wish it was zoomed in better, but this is a screenshot. You can see this is a wagon wheel. I don't know if a guy had it on a decoration. We were pulling into a spot real fast to slip bobber. Come off plane and I looked at him and said, what is that on the graph? Wagon wheel. Axle comes out the side of it. You can actually see the spindles. And I wish, like I said, we were zoomed in a lot closer, because if that wasn't in my boat, and that was on Lowrance's website, I wouldn't believe him. But it's mine. I'm telling you, that's legitimate as the day is. That was the first time I ever screenshotted. Ask Troy, I'm fumbling with the buttons trying to find the screenshot on my graph. Because I thought that is the coolest picture ever. I'm glad Mike Olson is in here. He'd kill me. I found this. This is actually a boat ramp on Devil's Lake. No one that I know knows about that boat ramp. I caught 3 29-inch fish in 2 days on this boat ramp. If you look at it, I found it on side scan. The rock riprap, both sides, the slates coming down on the boat ramp. You can even see a little of the blowout hole. That's again from my boat. This isn't from Lowrance, that's my deal. So you think that helped? We caught every giant fish for 2 days off the tops of those riprap piles on the side of that boat ramp. So it's key. And again, that's in my boat. Tips and tricks. You've got to make sure that you have structure scans selected on your HDS or your touch unit. They come preloaded to not have all of these page selections. So you don't have to funnel through all these pages. So you just have to get in there, hit menu twice, and select the box that says structure scan. Now that makes all those features available. Same thing, we don't have radar and serious weather and all those options. Otherwise, to scroll through your pages would take you 4 minutes. Ding, 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 ding. So, no source is a common problem. When we first came out with the box, they had to be yellow wake-up wire, and we were having trouble getting them rigged up properly, so we were having some no source problems. Now, if you're using a touch unit and you have it linked to an HDS unit, and your HDS unit says no source, you probably don't have your touch unit on. Okay? That has to have power to get that source up there. So that's 99% of the time, if you have no source, it's a power issue. Powering up either your structure scan HD box or your touch unit isn't powered up right. Or your contrast, if you can't get a good picture, your contrast is off. Best thing Lowrance did last year, they came up with an update, and it's got auto contrast. Without auto contrast, structure scan is a pain. Because when you go into shallow water, you gotta turn it down. You get into deeper water, you gotta turn it up. So if you've got an HDS unit, a Gen 2 unit, the new update, you put that in there, it's got auto contrast. So even if you bought your unit 3 years ago, get it updated. If there's one thing I can tell you guys about everything to do with graphs, update them. There's a reason they updated them. Something wasn't working right in your unit, and they've got the bugs fixed with this update. Had a guy down in Sioux City this last weekend. I was down there for Shields, and brought me his graph. He had just bought it, and I don't know what happened and if there was a reset done, but he didn't have auto contrast. and he was a little frustrated. I stuck in the update chip for him. 4 minutes later, he's got auto contrast. He was like a brand new map. So that's a big deal. Again, less than 10 feet of water, this is old, 55. Over 10 feet is 70. Or your range is too far set out. I talked about that briefly. So I flew through that again too. Using your GPS. GPS has been around for quite a while. I had to talk about it because there's some cool things that I do that I don't feel like everyone knows about. Just so you know, there's 24 satellites revolving the Earth. You got to get connected to them to triangulate your position. You need 2 to figure out, 3 satellites to figure out where you're at. You need 4 more to tell your longitude, latitude, and your altitude. So that's how we triangulate that with the satellites. The clearer it sees, the better. Now, almost all of our units now have internal GPS, which is really nice, except Ranger and these companies keep building flush-mounted units. Well, that's not the clearest satellite signal. So I'm going to talk briefly about external GPSs and why they're useful. Just so you guys know, if you're familiar with the 4000 module, that's a 5 kilohertz module. All the new units now have that same 5 kilohertz built internally. So back when we were updating to the 4000 modules, that's what's built internally. Now we have a 0.1 antenna. I actually have a slide on that coming up. But the 0.1 is 10 kilohertz, so it's twice as fast as the internal, and then it also is twice as fast as the old 4000. Cursor back, you can see where that cursor followed the line. That's where that fish was. There's one pet peeve I've got, is a guy that's slow on hitting his waypoints, and he hits his waypoint now, and he goes to tell me where he's seen that fish, and I get the waypoint here. I want the waypoint up there. Okay? And I'm going to talk about that when we're when you're actually fishing. But scroll back, it's easy. You scroll back, you hit enter or waypoint, and it drops your spot. I think Randash, you were one of the guys that complained about getting rid of icons and typing in waypoints. You know, he's kind of old though, so we won't pick on him too bad. But hit waypoint once, and then it brings up your cursor. You can go through and change those numbers. On the keypad, it's so fast. Oh my goodness, just type it in like a computer. Really fast to enter in waypoints. So again, that's on the keypad. You can change your icon. You can change the color of your icon. You can type in a description. You can change the name. Because I've got a really good memory. It's just not very long. So that's a key deal. God, Randash, you should have laughed at that one.
I'm going to tell everybody where your boat ramp is.
Yeah, I know. I already know what's going on. Some cool ideas about saving waypoints. I know some tournament guys that'll type in 75 feet back, fire line, 7 flicker shed, fire tighter. And they have abbreviations for all of it. So when they go back to that waypoint 3 years from now, they actually know what they caught that fish on. And now with the descriptions, it's a piece of cake. It's awesome. Don't forget to save them. I got a slide on that. Here's the one thing I want to share with all of you. I know that this has won me money, and it has, other guys have missed it. If I'm trolling and a fish starts, I get a fish on the rod, the first thing I do is I go in and hit waypoint. One time. What that did is it drops a breadcrumb. Okay? Now you go back there, you reel your fish in. Holy smokes, it's a giant. Have your buddy take pictures, you smile, life is good. I hit waypoint again. I'm half a mile. You drop the waypoint back there. That is the keyest deal, and I'm going to tell you why it all saves you time. The opposite's true. You hit waypoint, guy's fighting it forever, and he catches the biggest carp of his life. You make fun of him, but guess what? You don't have to delete the waypoint. Hit exit, you haven't dropped nothing. Still fishing. So again, your waypoint is where you caught the fish, not where you got the fish in the boat, which when you're trolling can be up to 1/8 of a mile. So that's a huge, huge deal. Had a guy tonight. The GPS isn't following my boat. Do you have your cursor up? Yeah, I think I do. Hit exit. If you see the cursor up on your chart, hit exit. It follows your boat. I bet I get more questions on that for GPS than anything else, okay? Because your unit's going to focus on where that cursor is, not where your boat is. Number one mistake. So just hit exit. my contours aren't showing up on my map, you gotta select Navionics or Lowrance. Now I know there's a lot of you guys in here that are still Lake Master guys. Lake Master and Lowrance on a unit are the same selection, okay? So Navionics is on one side, Lowrance is on the other, or Lake Master would be a Lowrance selection. So you guys know. It has to know what map you have in there. Another common deal, and I don't know why, sometimes they start to, it's almost like corrosion builds up between your chip and your unit. So you got to check those connections. Push it in and out a few times. That sometimes will rub if there's a little corrosion or rust, if you've left it in there, if you got it under a bolt lift for a long time. Push it in and out of there a couple times, take it with your fingers and rub it. That'll give you a clean connection and get that map up. And then again, make sure your software has been updated. That is a huge, huge deal. Split screen GPS. Guys always used to laugh at me because I'd run split screen on my GPS. Well, why? You only need to know what position you're in, you know? I mean, your spot is your spot. For rigging, I have found it is huge key, especially with my head down. What are you doing? You're fishing, you're watching your graph, right? And you're kind of following along, and you got your map zoomed in so far to work a corner, to work an edge. Well, the wind's blowing, and you're fishing, and you're fishing. And all of a sudden you look up, you have no idea where the spot, on the spot is anymore, because you're focused on that such a tight area. So what I do is I actually have half my GPS zoomed out a little bit further, so I can quick reference what piece of that structure I'm on. Am I on the north end of it, southeast corner, where I'm at? Guys argue back and forth. North up, track up. And I say, yep, I do it both. If I'm zoomed out further, I always have it on north up. That's my paper map on my unit. Quick reference. I know that if that spot is that way, I gotta go northwest. Okay, when I'm trolling, I'm gonna be course up, okay? I know I've won some boat races back in the day for one reason, because I got zoomed out on one of my charts with a heading extension so I can cut the point 5 miles and don't turn my steering wheel. See the other guys kind of whine back and forth? Part of that is because my GPS is zoomed all the way out on part of it. So I know exactly that I'm going to cut that point perfectly. Heading extension, I got a slide on that I'm going to show you. It's a big deal. I only caught on to that a couple years ago. What is it? I'll show it in a second. It's got map lines. If I'm trolling and I'm at the end of that deal, that's a mile. 3/4 of a mile, half mile, quarter mile. It really lets you kind of key in on a waypoint. 2 maps at the same time. Pierce, South Dakota, 3 years ago. What chip to use? Navionics? Lowrance? I know, but I asked 50 guys. 25 guys told me Navionics, 25 guys told me Lowrance. I said, well, these guys can't all be wacko. Why was it? When Lowrance did their mapping, or when they bought the third-party mapping, from 20 feet, 25 feet and less was 1-foot contours, high detail. Couldn't believe it. Perfect, right? I get out to 30 feet, 10-foot contours. Can't see squat. Navionics, 1-foot contours, 30 feet and out. So what I did, I ran them both. It was awesome. I fished the entire tournament between 20 and 40, 45 feet. I'd roll into a spot in 20 feet, there my Lowrance chip was perfect, 1-foot contours. I'd roll out to a deeper spot, the Navionics had me covered. With the new touches, the 9 and the 12, you can run 2 map chips at the same time. Awesome feature. And you just select them the same way as you'd select a standalone unit. You highlight the one side, Navionics chip. You push on the other chart, highlight Lowrance chip. It is awesome, fellas. And I've got some slides. Here's the heading extension. If you can kind of see it, this middle line, half mile, this is a mile, 3/4, 1/4 mile. Really nice. You got your map zoomed out, you're trolling, you're like, well, we'll be there in 10 minutes. Well, or 2.5 hours. You got to figure out how far away it is. You're zoomed out too far. So that's the biggest deal. Jim Carroll, a good friend of mine, actually got me on the heading extension with the range lines. Again, just sonar menu, click on the heading extension. I run mine at 1 mile. 2 map chips at the same time. At quick look, I would say maybe this chart looks like it's got better detail, right until you see the hump on this map chip. See it here? Not very good. Okay. So if you ever come to a store, you will never, ever, ever, ever hear me tell you that one chip is better than another. I will ask you what lake you fish, and then we'll even get into it further. We're fortunate now, we do have multiple options with Lowrance, Navionics. Lake Master new product will not work in our product. So for the new Lowrance stuff, either the Lowrance chip or Navionics. Another prime example, this looks like this is right below at Red Wing. Nice detail with both. A lot of it's personal preference on how it's displayed. But again, both chips offer you a lot of advantages. Point one, I briefly touched on that. 10 kilohertz, so it's twice as fast as what's built into your units. It also has a positional compass in it. How annoying is it, you're drifting, and your arrow's doing this, a trick on you, right? Which direction am I going? Frustrating, don't understand. The point one has actually got a positional compass in it, so forward is always forward. If I'm drifting, my antenna will be just like this. If I go in reverse, it'll always be pointed off the nose of my boat. Really, really nice deal. And with that updated, with the faster kilohertz, it really smooths out your track. It doesn't seem to jump around near as bad. Replacement compatible with the Gen 2, the Gen 2 Touch, and the Elite 7. Make sure, another common problem, how fast you're updating with your GPS. You want to have that at 1 second so it's updating as fast as possible. If you're only updating every minute, you're going to have an awfully choppy trail because it's only getting the signal that fast. So get that updated to as fast as you can get it. This is honestly just about the Lowrance chip. We're offering you the entire center of the United States, Lake of the Woods, Mille Lacs, Devil's Lake. They're all on one chip. We're not going to charge you $100 for each. Here's the Devil's Lake, screenshot quick. Structure mapping. This is a cool deal. I'm not going to talk about a whole lot again. This is for high-end users. But I'm going to tell you what it's cool is you're actually overlaying your structure scan onto your map. Okay? You can save that. Some of those cool spines like on Cormorant where they got the high spots and the rock is better in other areas, I've structure mapped that. It's left on my GPS, so now I'm not guesswork every time. Spines saved onto my chart. You can structure map with all the HDS Gen 2 product. This is the live mode as you're saving it. It's only behind you, but as I'm explaining to you, once you have it saved, you know where all that rock is on that piece of structure. The first time you do it, you're going to tell me it didn't show up. You weren't zoomed in far enough. Again, you only got a swath, maybe 100 feet, 120 feet, depending on your depth. If you're zoomed out too far, you're not going to see it. Okay? So it is pretty cool. It's not for everyone. It's a little bit user intense. So again, go to File, Sonar OK, SMF, Structure Map File, show it, and then you got it. That's an example from Leech Lake. Get this common question. Why 2 10 inches, or why 2 12s, or a 10 and a 12? I think I did a pretty good job of explaining. We have side scan, we have down scan, we have chart, we have zoomed in sonar, we have sonar. I don't even have my GPS split on this screenshot. Okay? There's a lot of information. Is it a little bit overkill? It can be. I will tell you, the new 10 and 12s, being able to split that screen 4 ways is really nice. But again, you take a 10-inch screen divided by 4, you don't have a whole lot left. So I'm not trying to sell you a lot of graphs, but I'm telling you there is a reason that we do it, and it does come in really handy. Customized data overlays. This has been around forever. A lot of guys don't do it. But again, menu, go to the page is where your data overlay is, add it, go all the way through, configure, you can move this stuff around. The nice thing about the touches, once it's laid on your screen, I can put my finger and drag it wherever I want, okay? The touches are really nice to change settings, to go through that kinds of stuff. If your data overlay is not showing up, it's because you just simply haven't checked the box that says, show me my data overlay. Okay? Another common question. I went through all these settings, it doesn't show it. Panel sizes are right there too. That's a key thing, especially when you start splitting in 3 and 4 ways. to get the screen size the way you want it. NEMA versus Ethernet, common question. I'm going to tell you one thing to remember. NEMA starts with an N, numbers starts with an N. Anything with numbers can be shared through NEMA. Okay? Depth, GPS position, transmittable things with numbers. Ethernet is imaging. So in order to share imaging through your sonar, through your structure scan, your imaging, that all needs to be connected with Ethernet. Ethernet is actually not as high speed as the NEMA is, but has a better picture. The new Troy motor, which hopefully we'll talk about, is all connected through NEMA. Here's just an example of a couple graphs, GPS connected. If your units, if you need to check to see if you've got like a temp sensor or all these other different things, you can get into your network, go to your device list, it tells you. If you don't see it show up, it's not connected, okay? You don't even have it registered into your network or your backbone. So again, kind of a high-end deal, but that's where your device list is on your NEMAs. Save your data a lot. Waypoints are key. I mean, guys just about cried. 10 years of waypoints, they didn't save them. Their unit crashes. Game over. Can't do it. It's a computer, we can't pull them back down. So save them. One quick thing, I didn't create a slide on it. The new, last year on the updates, we can do regional waypoint sharing and saving. It is the coolest thing ever. Why is that? My buddy's going to partial on Lake Skakawea. I've been fishing Lake Skakawea for 25 years. He wants my waypoints. Okay. Do I give him 25 years of waypoints for 180 miles of water? I really don't want to. But I'll give him my waypoints for the partial area. I don't have a problem. Okay? I can export those waypoints by region. Again, you go into your waypoint selection in the page menu and hit export by region. It is awesome. I can select, I just drag the map to what area I want to share my waypoints. What I had done, I'd been terrible about organizing my waypoints for years and years and years. When that update happened, I actually went through, dumped all my waypoints onto my graph, and spent 2 hours and selected by region. Devil's Lake, I went Pelican Lake. I went Minnewacan area, Main Lake. So I have all these files now where my waypoints are saved by region. It's really, really nice, especially if you like to share waypoints. Because I don't like to give Randash all my waypoints. He's already too tough to beat. So if I just give him like one little spot, I might still have a chance. So, again, back up your settings the same way. You're going to buy a new graph. You want that graph on the front. Save your settings. Upload them to that front unit so that they're the same. Resets. Hard and soft, big difference. Hard reset, that unit's brand new. No more waypoints, no more trails, no more settings. Voila, brand new unit. Okay. Soft reset gives that computer a break, but you still have your waypoints and your trails. As you can see here, press and hold to zoom in and zoom out while you power the unit on, release it, and then just the pages button for the soft reset. Waypoint's not transferring. That's a nice thing with NEMA now and your Ethernet is when I hit waypoint on one unit in my boat, all 4 of them have the same waypoint. Okay, I have them all connected to receive waypoints and to send. But you got to make sure those are selected through your network, into your NEMA, send and receive waypoints. We talked about map chips a little bit, and I forgot to mention, now with LORAN stuff, with an Ethernet, I can have one map chip for all my units. So I have one chip now for all 4 of my units. So we're trying to get through that with an Ethernet cable, and that will share that information, which is huge. I made a lot of money last year selling a lot of map chips. Do not turn off your graph by holding in the power button anymore. If I see any of you that were in the seminar holding in your power button at the Cormorant or the Pelican tournament, you owe me one. It's just like a computer. You do not push the power button on your computer, correct? We go to system, shutdown, bang. It goes through a process, it gets itself cleaned up. Hit the power button once, select power off, hit enter. Turn it off like you're supposed to. It's a computer. Don't wreck it. We've actually now got Wi-Fi capability with the Gen 2s and the touches. Seems a little extreme. What's it really created for? It's created for big vessels. Okay? If I got a big 25-foot, even 26-foot sleeper boat, got my graph on the dash, I can run all my settings, I can see the screen on my iPad, on my iPhone. I can change them all. Someone asked me one time, why would they do that? You're going to quit selling units. Guy's going to use their iPad, they already own one. If you really want to take your iPad, the front of your boat, in Minnesota or North Dakota, when we don't even ever get summer, and drown that thing in rain and snow and water, feel free. But don't call me when it doesn't work anymore. These graphs are built, obviously, to be out in the weather, so I'm not encouraging you, but yes, you can do it. Connect it through Wi-Fi and change all your settings, see the sonar, it's awesome. I used to use this, but I'm so terrified of lightning I had to get rid of it. Because it does tell you where it's at, and I am a chicken. So, it is slick. It's like I'm trying to remember how expensive the subscription is. It's a Sirius XM through the weather, but it is really nice. And I remember Scott and Marty Glorvigan told me one key reason why this thing is awesome for catch and fish. We fish a lot of big reservoirs. How many times have you guys wheeled? I know Morris is really guilty of this one. He's got 4 fish, he needs 1 more. The wind seems perfect for the spot he wants to go to, right? He rears up his Ranger, he goes 60 miles an hour for 15 miles, he gets there, it's flat calm. Why? The wind was actually blowing a different direction when he got there. This actually shows you which way the wind is blowing. You can scroll all up and down the reservoir. Scott and Marty Glorvigan told me that, and I just about lost it. I went, oh, great. Yeah, you go to Lake Oahe, you're going to run 30 miles. Before you get there, you'll know which way the wind is blowing. Awesome deal. Engine integration, I'm not going to talk about this much, but yes, we can do all your engine information. Mercury, Suzuki, Yamaha, Honda, Evinrude. I know Troy's got this hooked up now this year with the, but it's nice, not through the Lowrance grass, but you can monitor your oil pressures, your heat, your cooling, everything. Really, really, really cool. Okay, I flew, okay? I've got some slides. Who wants to hear about the new Motor Guide trolling motor? The new, we've heard about the GPS integrated. I'll go through it quick. We all have iPilots. I've been running iPilot since 2010. Awesome trolling motor by Minn Kota. Guess what? They came out with a link system. Really cool stuff. Really good stuff to be able to integrate that with your graphs. Unfortunately, I run Lowrance. It don't work with Link. Okay? We had to have an answer. So, Motor Guide and Lowrance teamed up to create a Motor Guide XI5 trolling motor. Now, it's got a lot of the same features, a lot of cool features. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time as a sales pitch. Have I ran one? No, I have not. I've been on conference calls. I have talked to the only 5 individuals in the country that have ran them. The reviews are very positive. Am I running one this year? Yes. Okay. So, wireless out of the box, so there's no cord on the foot pedal. Foot pedal operates like a cable drive foot pedal. So your toes down turns left, foot down turns, oh, I mixed that up. See? It's been years since I drove a cable drive. But that's how it steers. 1 button for your power, variable speed. Big change they made is they got the anchor mode and right on the foot pedal itself. So you don't need to have the remote to use the anchor. We have a Lowrance E3200 transducer built into it. Again, universal transducers on like iPilot are very good, but they're only at about 90–95% as good as what having one of our transducers built into that motor. So again, it's going to be pre-installed with the blue connection for a Lowrance. If you have a Lowrance unit, plug it right in. No adapter cables. But we will have adapter cables for Humminbird, Garmin, etc., etc. Anchor hold. One of the coolest deals on the anchor is the jog feature. If I'm anchored up and I miss the rock pile by 10 feet, I hit the right button twice. 5 feet, it anchors me right there. Okay? So it's no more turn the anchor off, hit it again, and then wait till it gets reset. I can jog all over. if you go on to like Chris Meyer's Facebook and some of the website stuff, they've got real-time video, and Chase Parsons did it, where he actually works a pillar on a bridge and goes all the way around it with the anchor lock. Unbelievable with that jog feature. Really nice. Heading lock, that's all the same kind of stuff. Cruise control, same kind of deal. Pinpoint navigation, this is going to be the hand control for it. Looks like you're looking at an iPilot remote for the most part. Again, it's going to be integrated with your NEMA, so we're going to be able to run all of your functions through your HDS and your touch units. HDS and touch units, not the Elite product. So again, we can run all those functions through a top crossbar that's going to come across your graph. That's how you can access that trolling motor, make it work. Again, here's that magical 3 letters I told you guys about. This must be a company slide, MFD, multifunctional display. We'll be able to set the waypoints as your anchors. We're going to be able to set waypoints as your trail that you want to follow. Create custom routes, that's what we're doing here. And as you see, it's going to be all right on through your HDS settings. So it's going to be really nice. Again, it's complete in competition with the iPilot. I can tell you, Shields and Cabela's, Ray's Sport Marine, they are all carrying the motor guide. So I know the horror stories in the past of reliability, no places to fix them. Supposedly now that'll be taken care of. Because the one thing I can tell you from putting up in stores, if Shields sells them, they know something eventually will break, someone's got to fix them. And Shields is never going to sell you something that can't get fixed. So, a little bit of that. I went really fast. I just want to run through how Lowrance picks out what their units are. HDS is the series name. That number stands for the size of the screen. And then if we have an X, no GPS. If there's an M, it's just a mapping with no sonar. The number stands for the screen size diagonally. That is how every unit in Lowrance's family is named. This next, like 10 slides are just about the Lowrance units. I want to go through them quickly, but give them a shot. These are all new this year. The Elites and the Marks for the HDI. Again, high definition imaging. We've got the down scan and all of those. Elites are color, Marks are black and white. Okay, $200, $300. For $300 you get chart, down scan, and traditional sonar. It's unbelievable. And Sioux City, Iowa is the only place in the country I've ever heard anyone tell me that's too expensive. I got beat up down there pretty bad. Pretty much just going through that. There is a micro SD card slot underneath them. On the 4s, it's a little tough to see because it's up underneath. Not the greatest position in my opinion. Mark and Elite, pretty much all the different map select or the screen selections. How many in here bought Elites? I know they've been hot the last few years. Okay. You guys want one common setting you guys always ask me about? You've got your 3 panels maybe elongated and you want them the other way or vice versa. When you're on the page selection screen, hit menu. That's where you can option to how your screens are laid out. Okay, so page screen and then hit menu. And that's where you can configure whether you have 3 verticals or a horizontal and vertical. Lead 7, I'm telling you guys, I ran one of these on the bow of my boat last year on the trolling motor with the down imaging transducer. Wow, floored. $700, that thing. It actually sold too good. I wish I could turn the camera off so this didn't get back to Lowrance. It went too good. We really did a lot of damage to our 5 and 7 HDS sales. Destroyed them. That's why you see all the rebates out this year. This unit stole from that HDS line. And standing in the store, it was hard for me to tell someone not to buy that. With the down imaging, broadband sonar, and chart, pretty much you got what you need. And running it side by side, I had a HDS 8 next to it. Really good. Again, internal GPS on all of our graphs now. So unless you're mounting them flush mounted, or you just want to take advantage of the 0.1, all the internals are really good. Gen 2s, we've seen them for a few years now. This year now, no more base maps. They're all going to be the Insight 3-dimensional mapping. So that's going to be nice. The compatibility with the HDS and the touches literally is just about never ending. I can connect so many units, so many peripherals, we call it, to the MFDs. It's mind-boggling. If you ever get a chance, you see someone with radar on a walleye boat, ask them to go for a ride. It is the coolest thing ever. I don't have it on my boat, but it is amazing that we can offer radar, and they've actually got a less expensive option to put on your boat. It's just kind of cool stuff. We were doing some training at Shields U one year. Mike Schneller had one on, and it was dark, and we're running in, and he couldn't figure out. They were looking around, and here was a flock of birds. And the radar, they had picked up the flock of birds on the radar. So it's pretty intense. I think Troy would agree. We wish we'd have had radar at the Big Muddy a couple years ago. We definitely would have won the boat race by even further, but the fog got us. It's spot on. It's just like the ocean stuff. It's pretty crazy, pretty cool. Quick keys, that's the biggest difference with the 8 and the 10s versus the 5s and the 7s. I was a little reluctant when they first came out, didn't really think that quick keys were a big deal after running them for 4 or 5 years. Those quick keys are the bomb. For those of you, I want to see if we've got a, okay, this is up on the bottom of your screen, okay, taking up an inch of the bottom, hold in the exit button, okay, that gets rid of those. Want to bring them back up, just hit one of the quick keys. I mean, you paid a lot of money for an 8 or a 10-inch graph, use it. Have the whole thing user-friendly. Menu, go into the system, and you can actually select that disappears after 15 seconds. So if you don't use them a lot, but you use them once in a while, click on that button, it gets rid of them after 15 seconds. You can also do it with the touch units, it eliminates them off the right-hand side of the screen. So that's one thing that's really nice, to have this screen with no on the bottom versus like that. I mean, it's an extra inch, you pay for it, use it. System overview, this is just connecting everything in their dog up to those graphs. Remember one thing, these are a lot like an iPhone or an iPad. This button up here in the corner, the page button, that's your home screen button. If you mess them up, hit the button, it takes you right back to the home screen. You can navigate through there. I ran a Touch 12 last year. It took a little getting used to, but boy, it is nice. Menus and going through the waypoints and entering them in, it is unreal. Structure scan is built in, but you need the transducer, okay? So when you see the structure scan HD is included, and you walk out of the store, and you get home, and now you don't have down scan or side scan, it's because you didn't buy the transducer. Okay, it's $300. With the touches or with the Gen 2s, that structure scan module and the transducer is $300 add-on to the touch units. Again, pretty much same features. In the 9 and the 12, you can buy a little adapter cable and hook up your video cameras to it. So, really cool to put an underwater camera on your 12 touch. Again, full-size SD cards, like I talked about. You can put 2 map chips in them, video input. So the structure scan transducer plugs in the back of it. There's 2 Ethernet ports out of the back, so you can connect 2 more units to that one without a box. So for rigging, I really liked it last year. I didn't have to mount that external box, run a cable, run power cable. The only thing I'm going to tell you, if you have a weaker battery, it's about 0.2 on your volts to run a touch unit versus a straight Gen 2. One thing, a tip I can give you, is to turn your backlight down if you guys are fishing a tournament or you got a long day and you see your volts start to drop. Turn your backlight down. It really increases the life of your battery in your boat for that day. Also, I just learned this last weekend. I had a booth right next to the Interstate Battery rep. Every time you guys take your batteries and enter like a regular lead cell battery in your boat under 20%, you just eliminated its life by 4%. So if you think it's good to take your battery all the way down, it's absolutely the opposite. 4% every single time that gets under 20%. So if you do that 10 times in a season, that's 40% of your battery life gone. So it's something I learned. So I wanted to make sure I shared that with you guys. I just learned that last Saturday. So I was pretty floored. Gel cells are different. They're built a lot better, built differently to handle them. Gen 2 overview, again, we talked about the backs of them with the Ethernets. Has the LSS HD sonar built in. Wonder if I have another screenshot. Those of you, there's a menu up here. Okay, that's where your data overlay selection is. It took me 3 phone calls to figure out where that was because I don't read a book. Had to call other post staff guys and find out.